Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Horror Spot Podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Andrew.
How you guys doing today?
Oh,
Oh yeah.
same old,
Same.
same
Oh yeah.
old. Andrew had some car troubles, but that's about it though.
Yep. Spent all day at the shop, Fun.
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, that sucks, man. Car issues suck. I recently paid off my car, so that is one less bill that I have to worry about.
God,
And
cars
man,
in general are just a nightmare.
right?
It never ends.
Spend all my money on it to make the money, right?
Exactly. I feel like paying off my car is like the most adultiest adult thing I've done in like a long time. But yeah, so today we are going to be talking about a movie that at least Nick and I have been talking about covering for years, and that
Yeah,
is
like 5 years now.
5 years. Yeah. We're going to be talking about Black Christmas, the original 1974 Black Christmas.
Not to be confused with another Christmas movie directed by Bob Clark, A Christmas Story, which is crazy that he directed both of these movies.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, one is, well, I mean, they're both cherished movies, Black Christmas in the horror community and A Christmas Story for everybody else.
Yeah. All the normal folks out there watch Black Christmas, or not Black Christmas, Christmas Story on Christmas.
Exactly. And Andrew, you recently watched this for the first time. Is that right?
No, second time.
Oh,
Second time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. About a year
All right.
ago, first time. Yeah.
All right.
Definitely held up. A year ago after all these years, and still did. Like 2 days ago, with like little like stiff things like here and there because it's so like kind of like first of its kind, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, like a lot of the topics in it like still hold up and
Oh, yeah.
topical even today.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll definitely talk about that later, especially that one hot button issue that I kind of forgot about.
Yeah,
But it's still relevant today in 2022.
Yeah, fellatio,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Fellatio.
it. That's the one. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
one.
that new exchange.
It's an extension.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the exchange.
It's a new exchange. Fellatio. Viewers of Black Christmas will immediately get what we're talking about, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it right away. It's streaming on Shudder if you have Shudder, or if you're able to pick up a copy from Scream Factory, I highly recommend that as well because it has some entertaining, specials and extra features. But what I want to get into here is a little bit of news that was reported on the 8th of August of this year, obviously 2022, and that is Bloody Disgusting has reported that super producer Roy Lee, who recently chatted with the I can't talk, with the Boo Crew over at Bloody Disgusting, indicating that a new Friday the 13th may be coming sooner than we think. Roy Lee is saying you may hear something by year's end on that front. Those of you that have been paying attention to what's going on with the Friday the 13th franchise know that there's been a long-running lawsuit between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, who is the writer of the original screenplay. And that has put Friday the 13th as a franchise on ice for a long time. It killed the game. It killed any future, products, licensed products, movies, anything like that on hold. And it fucking sucks. And I wholly blame Sean Cunningham for that because he is a greedy old bastard.
Yeah, he really needs to cut the shit. The game was murdered after that lawsuit started.
Yeah.
And also,
those poor developers, they tried.
Well, now they got the Texas Chainsaw game coming out now, so hopefully there's no fucking problems with that because I'm looking forward to it. And after the Evil Dead game, I really need something. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally. And then, fans of Friday the 13th might remember that Roy Lee's Vertigo Entertainment, did team up with LeBron James as Spring Hill Entertainment to produce a new Friday the 13th movie back in 2018. But because of the lawsuit, the kibosh got put on that. So
I forgot all about that. And we talked about it when we used to do our news episodes. I remember talking about that.
Yep. Turns out LeBron James is a huge Friday the 13th fan. which is, I think it's always kind of cool, when you find these like huge A-list celebrities and then like, they're fans of like the same stuff that we are.
Well, see, here's the thing. Is he a Friday the 13th fan or a billion-dollar franchise fan? Because I think there's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or is he just a fan because he might just actually be a psycho and he relates to him?
Maybe.
See,
Who
here's my
knows?
thing is you said sooner than later, but how soon is soon? Because I expected this lawsuit to last like another decade.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, based on the interview with a Bloody Disgusting, Roy Lee says you may be hearing something by year's end. So December, November,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, the news at the end of the year could be you're getting one in 7 years. Or the news is like, yeah, there's no change in the lawsuit. And
Yeah, the news is there's no news.
yeah.
I mean, that's true. That's true. But you got to remember, the last time we got anything Friday the 13th was 2009.
Yeah.
It's 2022, man.
Crazy.
Let's little news is better than nothing.
Yeah, that's insane. I can't believe the remake came out in 2009.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Also, speaking of Friday the 13th, Womp Stomp Films recently gave us an update saying that the production on Never Hike Alone 2 is going to be starting very soon. So expect the return of Ghost Jason and Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis in 2023.
Tom Matthews is coming back?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
big
fucking
time.
awesome.
Yep. So this one's near and dear to me because I donated as a backer on this one on their Indiegogo campaign. And I mean, I believe in Vincent DeSanti and Womp Stomp Films. What they did with Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow was fucking amazing. And they just captured that old school Jason magic.
Yeah, we were riding that before they even filmed it. Like we were super pumped for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I am definitely pumped for that. If anybody out there wants to donate, they're still doing backer donations on Indiegogo, as well as they're trying to get some of their stretch goals out, including an animated short, which sounds really cool, I would love to see that. I don't know. Do you guys have anything else?
No.
Oh, no?
As far as news go, yeah, you're pretty much tuned with it all.
All right, cool. Yeah, sorry to hog the spotlight there. One other really cool bit of horror-related content that I wanted to cover, and this is coming straight from issue 16 of Fangoria, Volume 2, issue 16, that I think is pretty cool, is there is an article by our favorite effects guy currently, Christopher Nelson, that's called Vincent Van Dyke's Nope Makeup Effects, right? And it covers Van Dyke's work on Jordan Peele's Nope. But the one thing that I found to be super interesting in this is that he talks about a new technology when doing life casts for actors. Instead of going in and doing like an alginate mold of somebody's head, they actually did a digital 3D scan of the actress's head, the one from the TV show at the beginning of Nope, to make it like super accurate for her head, so that way there's like no imperfections or anything like that when they finally create the life cast of her head. And as somebody who's dabbled in special makeup effects and have done life casts myself, I just found that to be super fucking cool. How technology has gotten to the point where you can almost do anything, and then it's a blending of digital and practical effects, which has been around for a long time, but this is the first that I knew of this application of it, and that just kind of fucking blew my mind. Also, if nobody has picked up issue 16 of Fangoria yet, go fucking do it because it is awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen Nope yet. I definitely want to check it out because I've heard a lot of good things about it. But I think that's kind of something that's been happening in the last 5-10 years or so, as practical effects are kind of making their way back into things. The digital stuff is just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, there's next for it's coming back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you have the budget and you have a good team, digital effects are great. But like nothing will beat old school practical effects. Even updated practical effects, and shit is just getting so cool. Like I remember when silicone, oh man, when what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't remember. When silicone made its introduction into the effects world, how it was like way better than foam latex. It looked better. Just cool shit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening in the next 5 or 10 years with practical effects and its resurgence. Hopefully we get a whole new generation of effects artists. We'll get maybe a new king of splatter. Not that Tom Savini will ever be replaced, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the new generation comes up with. Definitely.
Yeah, I think one of the movies that really stood out to me was 2016's The Void.
Yeah.
Andrew, I watched that with you back when it came out. I don't know if you remember,
Oh,
but
for sure.
but it was
Very The Thing vibes.
yeah,
for sure.
like Lovecraftian, Hellraiser. It was a really really interesting movie, and the effects on the monsters in that movie were like mind blowing. It was crazy.
Hell yeah. Void. It's a good movie. Absolutely. I would recommend that to anybody out there. But let's get on with the topic of today's podcast, and that is Bob Clark's Black Christmas. Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about the plot of Black Christmas?
Yeah. So if you've seen, it's just Halloween, but it takes place on Christmas, basically. No, but it takes place in a sorority house. We have a bunch of main characters. I wouldn't even say Olivia Hussey's character is even the main. It's kind of hard to pick who the lead is in this movie because all the characters have so much personality. I'm getting off track already. You want to do it?
Well, I would say even I mean, they do a good job of dividing up attention for pretty much most of the characters. Even the characters that stand out much more than the final girl or whatever. Just they all have their personality on the screen and everything too. But then they're just fodder too. They're just getting killed off.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Nick touched upon, this movie takes place in a sorority house. It's supposed to be in America, but this film was shot in Canada, which is pretty funny. When they try and juxtapose, so this is America, blah, blah, blah.
You
No,
know
it's
what's funny is
Canada.
the whole time we were watching, we were like, where the fuck is this movie taking place? And then it got to the point where we were at John Saxon's desk and there's an American flag, and I'm like, oh, it's like the Leo meme.
It's America, yeah. But in the scene before, one of them will be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, most everybody in this movie, and it's funny because Bob Clark mostly directed movies in Canada. He did a lot of movies up there. Most of the cast of this movie is Canadian, with the exception of John Saxon and Olivia Hussey, who is American Argentinian, actually. I could never
I think
quite.
she's English, actually.
She's from Argentina.
No, I know, but she's not American, though.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. My bad.
She was an English actor.
She does,
okay.
yeah. She does kind of have a British accent.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's hard to put down because it's not overtly British, but it's it's kind of strange, probably because she was born in Argentina, maybe raised there.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah. So, so this movie takes place in a sorority house. The girls of the sorority house are stalked and killed by an unseen killer. So very, this movie came out a long time before the slasher craze of the 80s. This came out actually before Halloween, came out before the final girl trope even. So there's not really one, I would guess, main character, until it comes down to it, which is Olivia Hussey's Jess. But each, it's an ensemble cast, and there are a multitude of characters here who are all likable, I feel, in their own way. There's only one character in this movie who I really, really do not like, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, I mean, the plot of this movie is about as simple and bare bones as you can get, but without making it boring or, uninteresting.
Right.
It's Black Christmas is a one-of-a-kind movie.
You said it came before Halloween. It was only 2 months shy after Texas Chainsaw 2, which is crazy.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw released in '73.
Yeah, kind of the first two real kind of pioneers into it.
It was
Absolutely.
October '74, but well, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Yeah, both pioneers. Again, before the slasher craze of the 1980s, before Halloween. So yeah, Black Christmas and, like you said, Texas Chainsaw, pioneering the way for horror movies as we know today. But getting into the characters, so we've already mentioned Olivia Hussey as Jess, and John Saxon, who is a legend, not only in just horror movies but in Hollywood in general. He passed away fairly recently, within the last couple of years, so that was kind of a sad loss for all of us in the horror community. Those, of course, know him as Lieutenant Thompson in Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 1 and 3. Black Christmas. He was in Dario Argento's Chinabra, I believe.
He was
So
also
Giallo
in
Italian.
New Nightmare.
He was in New Nightmare.
He played himself though.
Yep, played himself. And then when they did like the I don't know if you'd want to call it like a dream sequence. I guess it is, because
not really, because the world was just kind of being swallowed up by the dream world. So
that's true. So he plays both himself and Lieutenant Thompson in New Nightmare, which is kind of cool. But yeah, great cast. Also in this movie is Keir Dullea, famous for being in 2001: The Space Odyssey. Margot Kidder, who would go on to be in Superman, Richard Donner's Superman. Her career really took off after this movie. Andrea Martin, who plays Phil, who returns for the 2006 Black Xmas remake, though she's not playing the same character. Yeah, let's not talk about Black Xmas or 2019's Black Christmas, because they're not worth talking about.
Oh no, you brought it up.
I haven't even seen the newest one.
Yeah,
it's not. Oh, it's not good.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
But the one that I really, need to mention is the superstar of this movie, and that is Marion Waldman as Mrs. Mack, who is
man. Dude,
I love Mrs.
Mack.
Mack.
Fucking gem.
She is like a person out of time. Like you can like pick her up into like any time and feel like she'd like fit right in.
It was her and Mr. Harrison, James Edmund, the whole movie. They are so fucking funny.
Yeah, and that's
the eyes on Harrison.
Oh, I know. It's funny. In my notes here, I took some notes about him, and he just seems so lost. At the same time concerned. He's like this doddering father who has no idea how to act or whatever in this sorority house. But he's just so. I don't even know. He seems lost and concerned at the same time.
Yeah, it's like his confusion
so
is
prim and proper.
Yeah,
out of place.
His confusion is outweighing his daughter being missing. The whole movie is just what the fuck is going on here?
Exactly, confused. That's how I would really describe it. But yeah, great character actor from James Edmund. As Mr. Harrison, and like you said, Andrew, I mean the exchanges between Mrs. Mack and Mr. Harrison really are some of the best parts of this movie. Bob Clark, when he was instructing the screenwriter to write, Mrs. Mack, he took mannerisms from his own aunt, and put them in there, and then. The thing that I find most hilarious about Mrs. Mack is, she hides all these bottles of sherry around the sorority house. And it's you can tell she's either waiting to retire or waiting to die. She's just so checked out.
Yeah, I'd say that's the funny thing about her is she's kind of just given in to all the shenanigans around the house. So it definitely feels more I'm just going to wait till this shit's over.
Right.
My theory on why she hides it all around the house is because the girls, especially Barb, would just find it and drink it. So she just
Barb
hides it everywhere.
Right. Exactly.
Barb. There are so many funny characters. Barb. What's his name? Nash. John Rudder, not Ritter. Sorry, who was just Laughing Detective was his character's name, which is funny.
Oh yeah.
I love that
And it
scene
sums
so
up
Yeah, I
his
love that,
character
yeah.
perfectly, I guess.
right?
It seems
Well,
so natural. Like he's just laughing his ass off like somebody else would. Like what an idiot.
right?
Dude, that
Yeah,
whole
no,
sequence with him and John Saxon and Nash was like, you cannot recreate that in a million years.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. You have to. It's a lightning in the bottle during that scene between Doug McGrath, John Saxon, and John Rutter. It's just,
Yeah, it's great.
Doug McGrath. It's like he's playing this character. I can't tell if he's like just trying to struggle to be the best cop ever, or if he's just like fundamentally incompetent.
Just
I'd say it's a
hapless.
mix of both.
He's
He's
just a
trying.
hapless cop.
Yeah, he's trying way too hard. He's too serious, and like his seriousness overshadows any sarcasm that hits him.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, man. And then again, going back to their characters here, you got Keira Dullea playing Peter, who is Jess's girlfriend or Jess's boyfriend, sorry, in this movie. And Peter is the only character in this movie that I really don't like so much, just because he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. So he plays like a music student studying at a conservatory on this college, right? He's super high strung. He's super stressed out, and
Entitled.
he's just entitled, misogynistic, and
There's
just,
literally not a good thing. Like
Yeah.
positive.
I
part of
agree.
his
Dude,
character.
like, no matter what your political beliefs are, he was just way
He's
out
just
of
a
line
whi-
in this movie.
He's just a whiny prick. It doesn't. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
it was
matter what
insane.
you believe in. He's just a whiny prick.
You know, he was 38 when they filmed that movie.
Yeah,
That's
Crazy.
insane.
yeah, man. It's weird, but I mean, 38. I guess it's not too bad.
Well, I mean,
you
it's a
know?
little old for a college student.
True. Yeah, to be on
I mean,
the old end for being
obviously
college.
depending on the circumstance, but it's not typical.
Right. That's true.
No, not,
Yeah,
not
I mean-
back then anyways.
Yeah, I mean, he does say he's been at that conservatory for 8 years, so who knows how long he's been there? And
Right, yeah.
it in the end, it really doesn't matter how old Peter is supposed to be. But I had no idea that he was 38 when they did that movie.
Well,
That's crazy.
another fun fact about him is, or the character anyway, is Malcolm McDowell was approached first.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy, and he turned it down. And he says it's kind of like a Christopher Lee kind of thing, where or even with Loomis, he says he regrets his decision to this day, which is obviously like it's got to be so hard to see a movie do so well.
Oh yeah, and
Absolutely.
have such like a claim to fame, like
Yeah.
right, like your foot in the door.
I
like,
mean,
right at
Malcolm
the beginning.
McDowell has really had an imprint on horror, but that would
Oh,
be a
yeah,
great one
for
to have
sure.
under his belt.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I think it would have been. Well, I don't know if it would change the dynamic of the movie so much.
I think it would have been a radically different character. If you look at Clockwork Orange, like
True.
he is a wacko, that guy. So who
Yeah.
knows what kind of direction he would have taken it in?
True.
And it would have
yeah.
made sense because, like we're talking about, like Peter was kind of a shitty character. It would make sense for the way they're kind of posing him as a red herring, that his character was acting out a little more. And I think Malcolm McDowell would have expressed that a lot better than the actor that played Peter did.
I
Yeah,
can see.
probably.
I can
Yeah,
see
I can
that.
see it.
Yeah. I've often thought about how Christopher Lee would have been as Dr. Loomis in Halloween, but I mean, I just can't picture anybody else besides Donald Pleasance
Yeah,
playing
it's
that
impossible
role.
now, but like
But
even
back
Peter,
then-
even
Like in
Peter
in
Cushing.
an alternate timeline, people would be saying like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I couldn't see Loomis without fucking Saruman.
Right. Or
True.
Count Dooku, if you're a Star Wars fan. But
Yeah, that's why I always say instead of Christopher Lee, I say Saruman because he always says no, Count Dooku.
but Peter Cushing was approached too. It's like it's so crazy
Mhm.
that both. I mean, they both did just fine, but it's crazy to think about either of them in that role.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And, things worked out the way that they did. Malcolm McDowell joined the Halloween family in the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. Christopher Lee went on, for a long, long career, as did Peter Cushing, and they were already legends at that point.
Oh
But
yeah.
but yeah, after researching this movie, Nick, I didn't know that Malcolm McDowell was approached to play Peter first, but I found that was pretty cool. Little piece of trivia there. Let's see what other characters. So I would say that the main ensemble of Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, John Saxon, Keir Dullea, and even Andrea Martin, because she has who plays Phil. Um, they all have major parts in this role, but then you have all these little side characters here, like Phil's boyfriend, the guy with the big afro, Patrick, I think his
Oh
name
yeah,
was.
yeah,
His part when they do like the Christmas get together for all the kids, and he's like, ho ho ho, Christmas shit.
yeah.
He just clearly
He's just
doesn't
bad
want to be
Santa
there.
before bad Santa.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a bad thing to say about any of the actors in this movie. I just think it is a wonderful, wonderful movie. Definitely, as I said, one of its kind for sure.
Yeah, I think when we were watching it, I was watching it with Andrew the other day. He was like, this movie is so ahead of its time. You couldn't, if you sat someone down and maybe aesthetically you could tell it was from '74, but I would never guess it was from '74 if I watched it the first time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you like upped it, yeah, because I mean, a lot of it still kind of like sticks. It's just like, oh, you can tell it's a bit of an older movie. But
Absolutely.
other than that, like, I mean, that's probably why they tried to remake it and just
Keyword
yeah, that's
tried.
funny.
Tried, yeah.
Yeah.
Tried and failed twice. to
They did
remake this
something
movie.
with it. I'll say that.
Well, it's a little bit, I mean, everybody had to come together to do this, but I think for me, one of the really magical parts about this movie is not only Bob Clark's direction, but also Reg Morris's cinematography
I was just
in
about to
this
say
movie.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Reg Morris
Lots of
also worked.
voyeuristic shots.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Kind
Reg
of
Morris.
really that like before that was like a trope and like just it like just said so many things. Just like the voyeuristic like pan in shots, like somebody's watching from the outside, creeping around, like kind of
Mhm.
just like really helped. It wasn't the first to do it, but like definitely
Yeah,
helped
correct.
make it the trend.
Yeah, a lot of people think it was the killer POV shot, but that was actually from Peeping Tom in 1960. Was the first
Yeah,
movie to
yeah.
do the POV killer shot. But one thing also in researching this movie, I found out is that Reg Morris also worked with Bob Clark as the DP on A Christmas Story, which is why the cinematography looks as good as it does as well as Black Christmas. Same DP, same director, same just great shots. And Black Christmas came out, or not Black Christmas, but A Christmas Story came out in like 1983, I think, somewhere around there. So,
See, I think that's an important recipe for a movie, and not a lot of movies do it these days. Is director and cinematographer teams, because like you look at like John Carpenter and Dean Cundey, fucking great movie after great movie after great movie whenever they work together.
absolutely, I agree 100%. But even though Black Christmas wasn't the first movie to use a killer's POV, it was the first movie, at least horror movie, to be presented on a holiday, which is pretty cool. Another groundbreaking thing. This formula, would later be followed on by Halloween, My Bloody Valentine, New Year's Evil, April Fool's Day, things like that. Friday the 13th. So
Yeah, the 200 Christmas themed
Yeah.
slasher movies that came out between 1980 and 1990.
yeah, exactly. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Ugh. We could talk about that in another episode.
I mean, those movies have their own charm.
Oh my God, yeah, especially part 2.
Oh, yeah,
Garbage Day. With Black Christmas, I forgot to mention the character of Claire, who is the first victim in Black Christmas. One of the things that happens in Black Christmas, and it's one of the defining things about this movie, is that the sorority house gets these obscene phone calls from the killer in the movie, who later you find out his name is Billy, or at least he calls himself Billy. During these calls, he's making all sorts of just incoherent noise, babbling little bits of dialogue here and there, but it's all different voices, or at least it's portrayed to be Billy making different voices. And
Multiple
one thing,
characters, yeah.
Yeah, multiple characters. And one thing that Claire says is, could that be one person in the first phone call? And I feel that that gives credence to the idea that like Billy has maybe multiple personalities, or is at least extremely fucked in the head, as we know that he is. You know,
Yeah,
Oh yeah, without a
he's just
doubt.
a little disturbed.
just a
Yeah, just
tad.
a little bit.
Again with Claire, I mean, she gets killed in this movie just a little after 10 minutes into it, and that her death scene to me is super chilling.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, because it starts off so innocent, and then you realize Billy was in the room with her the entire time, and then you know he imitates a cat to lure her over to where he is, and then just strangles her to death with this plastic bag, you know, asphyxiates her, and it's just terrible. I mean, the screams that Billy, you know, screams out are just, good God, I've never seen anything or heard anything like that outside of Black Christmas
See
before.
what's cool
Oh
about
yeah,
that scene.
those.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
What's cool about that scene is it kind of sets up, because we know the cliches that exist now. It kind of
Mhm.
seems like it was setting up like, oh, it's just gonna be Barb behind the plastic and it's gonna be a jump scare, but like not at all. Like a violent
Yeah,
murder takes place.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, it wasn't a trope back then, like the killer hiding in the closet. You know what I mean? Like that
Hmm.
was like fresh shit. And
Yeah.
that's yeah, and then like I was gonna like the phone call is just like so like graphic and like disturbing, and
Mhm.
it's just like even to this day, it's like wow, that is fucked up. I can only imagine in '74 like people going to see it and like being so much more like conservative back then,
Oh
like
yeah,
or
yeah.
more innocent in America, like just like wow, this is disgusting. Like
Oh
just
yeah,
like
Yeah.
not
it's
hearing stuff like
vulgar
that
to say the
before.
least.
Yeah, it is
Uh,
out there.
Super vulgar. And you know, I don't think outside of Texas Chainsaw, I don't think anything like that has ever been seen on screen before to the extent like that. You know, they were definitely, Bob Clark was definitely going for something to really rattle the audience with that. And I mean, he did it in spades. That scene is super, just like, you know, gives me chills. And then later
Oh
in the
yeah.
movie, you know, the stinger with Claire's dead body in the attic and the song that Billy sings
Yeah,
to her
yeah.
body is just fucking creepy.
Yeah, yeah, he sets her up with a teddy bear and is like rocking the chair.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? When me and Nick were just watching it again, I thought it was really kind of appropriate or kind of makes sense like the timing for when like Texas Chainsaw and Black Christmas like really kind of the pioneers came out to set it up because all the serial killings happening in America around that time and it was just like what the early 70s when like the American public first heard like the term serial killer for the first
Mhm.
time and then like 2 years later it's like like movies like this like coming out and it just kind of like set the whole foundation for like horror movies going forward.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny you mentioned that because as I was researching this, allegedly, Black Christmas drew inspiration from serial killer Wayne Bowden, who was known as the Vampire Rapist, who killed 3 women in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, between October of '69 and January 1970. So, you know, take that as you will. Art imitates life, you
Yeah,
know, crazy.
yeah. And just like Texas Chainsaw being modeled after Ed Gein. And
Yeah.
without Ed Gein ever existing, then like movies as you know it would be just different. Like
Yeah.
there wouldn't
No,
have been a Texas Chainsaw.
exactly. Yeah. And then Gein's story itself not really being represented in film until much, much, much later. You know, movies actually being made about him, but movies definitely taking inspiration from Ed Gein's
Oh,
killings.
heavy.
You know,
Yeah.
Psycho, I think, was
Just
the
this
earliest
whole
one of them.
yeah,
Um,
Psycho and yeah,
Texas
just so
Chainsaw,
much.
Deranged, I think, is another one. Um, that I don't know if Bob Clark did Deranged. I know Tom Savini worked on it, but that's another
I
one
mean, what
that takes
hasn't he
heavy.
worked on?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's
Tom
like
Savini,
the guy.
he is the guy. Yeah, definitely. Tom Savini did, however, work on another Bob Clark film. Oh my God, I'm flaking on the name here, but it was early in his career. Death Dream.
Yeah, I was
That was
just
it.
about to say.
Death Dream. Yeah, early in his career. if you have Tom Savini's books, Grand Illusions 1 and 2, he goes, into depth about what he did on those movies, tells you how he made the corpses in those movies, things like that. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. But yeah, so moving along, I know we talked about the hot button issue that is relevant today. So trigger warning for those who are listening. In this movie, Olivia Hussey's character Jess and Keir Dullea character Peter are a couple. And one thing that is kind of like a subplot and point of tension between these two is you find out that Jess is pregnant and that she wants to get an abortion. Okay. So given everything that's going on in the current political climate this year of 2022, and how Peter's character reacts to it. I mean, he literally says, you can't make that decision. You haven't even asked me, you're not doing this. We're getting married. It's just literally, I said out loud, man, fuck you.
Yeah,
for
such a
doing
prick
that.
about it.
Yeah,
He
very,
is.
very, just like I said, his character is just nothing but a whiny prick, no matter what you believe in.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jess goes on later on, where she says, she asked Peter to remember, the things that he wanted to do with his life and then the things that she wanted to do with her life, and her saying that she still wants to do those things, with her life. And she doesn't want to marry Peter just because she's pregnant. She's going to do what she wants to do with her body. And really, it's her choice. And to have this presented in 1974 was, I think, groundbreaking.
I just want to say too, to cut in, you know how everybody's like, oh, movies are, they're so political nowadays. Like, why are they? No, when this came out in '74, it was like just a year after Roe v. Wade originally, in
1970.
'73. Was it seven? I think it might have been. I don't know.
Well,
It was like
the
70
case went
73.
open
It was,
70, and then it ended on January 22nd, 1973. So
okay.
It was
so,
a long-
well,
it was a long case.
either way, it was very fresh in like
Oh,
the minds
yeah.
of America. Just like if you were to take any topical, big name, big button thing.
oh yeah, and it was
like
a
right
big
now.
part of the movie too. It wasn't like
Yeah, and it was a
sprinkled in
very
there.
big. Yeah, it was like to cause like a division and like make you suspect Peter. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it's set the stage
movies
for
have
him.
always been political, like that, or at least satirical or kind of
Mhm.
Well, I
make
mean,
it
you
a
look at
bigger
you look at
point.
directors like Joe Dante. Like his movies are wacky and ridiculous, but they have a political undertone. It's always happened.
Absolutely, I agree. And then even Citizen Kane, was highly political. It was making fun. It was satirizing William Randolph Hearst, who was a big media magnet.
Yep,
Um,
yellow
you know,
journalism responsible for so many horrible things in America.
Exactly. Yeah. Before the standards of journalism, were really, ratified what you could and you could not report
Yep.
on.
I mean,
helping to make weed illegal.
To Kill a Mockingbird, like American
Mhm.
cinema is built off of political films.
Oh yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird. That's like
Yeah,
yeah, banned in so many places, and it's like, oh wow, it must be so raunchy and everything.
Right,
And it's
yeah.
just like no.
Yep, definitely hits all those buttons, which is, I think that's what art should be about, whether it be books, film, comic books, even. God, there's so many, there's so much politics in comic books. You wouldn't think that there are, but there are.
Yeah, some you wouldn't think would be controversial, but people get upset about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree for sure. But yeah, man, the whole thing with Peter and Barb is still relevant to this day, 50 years later, almost 50 years later, so good for Bob Clark and his team for doing this. And I feel that Jess putting her foot down is super empowering, and it's a great bit of storytelling, and I love that part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super relevant at the time and just very realistic and
Yeah,
true.
for
And I'd
sure.
say it wasn't a poor way to set up Peter's motive either. Like usually it's something stupid, like they really reach and try to fit something in, but this fit in like perfectly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
natural.
they already established that he's under a lot of pressure. Like during the initial phone call between he and Jess, I've been up for 3 days. I haven't been to bed for 3 days. He's practicing for this big recital. You know, I can understand
Blows
he's
it.
under a lot of pressure. Blows it, right? I have, funny you say that. I have it in my notes here. Flunked your recital there, fella. Too fucking bad.
we were
Yeah.
watching it and we're like, Jesus, Peter, quit while you're ahead. Holy fuck, this is
Yeah.
embarrassing.
You know, that's
for
probably
us.
the best acting is the actor puts in there for his character when during the piano recital
he's
because it's
fucking
like you can
sweating.
feel the pain in his face and like as he's just flunking the test.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got the
I-
ashtray with a burning cigarette up there. You know, he's just like banging away
Yeah,
on the
like you
grand
can
piano.
feel his embarrassment.
makes you wonder why he's been in college for 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's true. And then he fucking trashes the piano later.
Oh yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what
Well, yeah,
does
we
that
were talking like,
accomplish,
how much
dude?
is that gonna be worth?
Again, entitled.
Thousands of
He's
dollars.
an entitled little bitch. That's what it feels
Yep.
like.
And then him blaming Jess for failing his recital later on is another big fucking asshole
Yeah, it's
move.
so crazy.
Yeah.
His character again, like his character. I guess he was acting out in certain ways where it's like maybe it's better that he wasn't acting crazy, like how I said I thought Malcolm McDowell would, because it kind of fits his personality, like the spoiled, like rotten little fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a cliche of just like all kind of, you know, all the negative kind of cliche tropes about like guys back then. But
Exactly.
a lot more at the time period, you know, a bit more accurate, I would say.
Yeah.
To a
Again,
certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, Peter is definitely the asshole of this movie, and it's funny because in my notes, it's a running theme. Like, I like that they set up Peter as the red herring, which to me is believable because he's an asshole. I mean, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
think that Peter is making the calls too because he's an asshole, you know, stuff like that. But,
Well, it's
You know.
it's funny you say that because it's like his immaturity would not stray him that far away from prank calling the house because he was mad at her. So it fits in perfectly.
exactly, yeah. And then later on, when it reveals that Peter like was in the house waiting for Jess, really sets that up. It's like, oh shit, is he the?
Oh yeah, and he
is he the killer?
pops in right after she gets off the phone. So it's like,
Right. So yeah, there's a couple different subplots going through this movie. Jess's pregnancy, one, the friction between her and Peter, but also this movie is playing out on the backdrop of a 13-year-old girl getting killed. At least I don't know if she was raped and killed or not. In the background, so like there's this whole big search party scene and things like that. But do you guys think Billy could have killed this 13-year-old before moving on to the sorority house?
That's what I was wondering. I don't think so. I think it's just pure coincidence because so much of what happens, like him just being in the house the entire time, while there's like a dozen or more people in there as he's like actively killing people, it's all just like the perfect storm of coincidences. Like it's Christmas, you know, like the police station isn't fully staffed and they don't exactly got their A team at the desk there with Nash and like,
Right.
and then they got this killing that's going on at the park, and then they're talking about missing girls, and then obscene phone call, and it's just all like nobody knows what's going on because it all takes place over like not
2
even, like-
days. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 days,
I
yeah.
think personally Peter did it, but I mean, Billy didn't get to the house until. Well, we know that he didn't get to the house until after she went missing because her mom in the police station. So, I mean, it's possible, but what did he just like stumble upon her, and then the next thing he saw that interested him was the house? Like, I don't
Yeah, it
think
can
I
go
don't
either
think
way.
it was him.
I think it's just like in real life, it's just chaos. Like
Yeah.
random coincidences happen in real life.
I mean,
and
yeah,
it
but
just
what are
throws
the
people off.
odds though? Hours between each other, two different people kill
Yeah,
someone in the
I
same
mean,
town.
But it happens in real life all the time,
It does.
especially in the 70s with what was going on in America with serial killers.
Yeah.
Multiple
And
serial killers operating in the same area at the same time and like getting blamed for each other's kills.
Exactly. And you took the words right out of my mouth, Andrew. I mean, it was utter chaos for these 2 days. It's like this girl goes missing. We know later on that she's found dead in the park. And then that night, Billy invades the sorority house. The question is left unanswered if Billy was the one that killed the girl. But he's in that sorority house for the next, a day, really, because it takes place over 2 days. But just fucking
Yeah, it's like
chaos.
one night, one day, and like one night.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, so let's talk about Barb here for a second, and her fascination with sea turtles and how they can fuck for 3 days.
Barb, Barb. Oh, she was a nightmare for Mr. Harrison the entire movie.
Yeah, those eyes and
Oh
eyebrows
yeah,
just
every
said
move she
so
made,
much
he was
without
like,
saying a
"You
word.
fucking disgrace."
You
Yep.
you harlot,
Exactly.
Charlotte, whatever it is.
Yeah, you harlot. Yeah, no, Barb. I love her character. Like even though she's drunk, and I think I read somewhere that Margot Kidder insisted on drinking actual alcohol, um, to to play Barb. So in some scenes she was actually quite tipsy. But like that whole scene where her, Mrs. Mack, Phil, and Mr. Harrison are sitting down for dinner, and she's talking about, did you know there are some species of sea turtles that can fuck for 3 days, which are sea turtles, as I found out, was just like, what the fuck is going on here? It is so removed from everything else. But then she, goes on to say, you all blame me for Claire leaving, you're blaming me, Mr. Harris, things like that. Earlier in the movie, Barb has a phone call with her mom that seemed to be pretty disappointing, so maybe she's, drowning her sorrows in alcohol, and then the stress of Claire being, disappeared. Who knows what mindset, Barb is in, during those scenes. But man, hats off to Margot Kidder for playing a hell of a character in Barb.
It's so funny that entire scene, Mrs. Mack behind Mr. Harrison, like you can tell
Yep.
is
Oh yeah, she's trying
is
not
trying
to laugh.
so hard not to laugh at what's going on.
Yeah, Phil too is. I mean, you can see
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
the
Well,
actress's
she's just
face.
laughing. Yeah.
She is. She's trying to hide it in the most polite way possible, until she puts Barb in her place. Barb, you're drunk, go to bed, kind of deal. But man, like I said, hats off to Margot Kidder. Just a wonderful actress and definitely missed
Oh yeah.
in the acting world.
I mean,
for
just
sure.
the entire scene with Nash, like their whole dynamic is so fucking great. It's like, again, and obviously Nash compliments it like crazy, but her character, she does the drunk thing so well, like you were saying. Like obviously, I didn't know she was actually drinking, so that makes sense. But
Yeah.
it's so realistic. It's not overdone like in other movies. Like she seems like she's drowning her sorrows in alcohol the entire movie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And then like later on, so there's a scene in the movie where the little girl is found. They don't show the little girl, they just show the reaction. Mr. Harrison is there, Jess is there, Phil is there. And when they find this little girl, it's kind of heartbreaking. The mother shows up and she screams. But later on, after Jess comes back to the movie, Barb has this nightmare, and coincidentally an asthma attack from this nightmare, and she believes that somebody was in her room. That is not a nightmare. She's
Yeah.
probably half awake because Billy was really there. And speaking of that scene, goddamn, Barb's death scene is beautifully shot.
Oh yeah.
With the juxtaposition of Jess watching the children sing, that Christmas song, intercut with Billy stabbing Barb with that glass unicorn.
Oh yeah, the glitter, the glare coming off of the unicorn. It's shot
Yeah.
so well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well.
And then
Yeah, they got the light
just-
perfect, like right on the tip. I was
They
like, I
did.
was talking to Nick during the scene. I was like, imagine being killed by a knick-knack though.
I got killed by this piece of tchotchke over here. I don't know what's going on. Right? Imagine that. But yeah, I mean, that scene is just fucking great. And the lighting on Billy, where it just shows only his eye, Nick Mancuso's crazy ass eye just
Oh, yeah.
staring down
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Barb.
Well, that's something we should-
That is one of the best shots in
Mhm.
movie
Yeah,
history.
yeah. You see
period.
like the insanity in his eyes when he went during that
Dude,
shot.
evil.
You know,
He looked like that looks like a demon's eyes.
That
And that's
shot.
like the only part of his face you ever see.
Mm-hmm.
That shot I want to talk about a little bit too, because it looks, he's dressed like Peter. He's got the green turtleneck. His hair looks
Oh yeah,
almost
you do
exactly
kind
the
of see
same.
his chin and that. Yeah, very. Yeah. He's got
Yeah,
the
it's
same
like
length hair
very,
and
very
outfit.
heavily implied that it's
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah. Well, clearly, yeah, they were going for it like well before like the red herring like fake out killer was a trope because like they set it up.
Is
Like
it
they
is
pioneered
it
that.
green?
kind
I
of.
Oh,
thought I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
Billy was wearing a black
I don't think it was
turtleneck.
I mean, it looks
Yeah,
green.
well,
Maybe
it's dark.
maybe
It
it's
was
different because like it's HD now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it looked pretty green
Well,
to me.
either way, they look similar. Like
Yeah, they're dressed the same. They
in
have
the
the same hair.
shadows, kind of.
Yeah,
Like they would
same
look very
blue
similar in the
jeans,
shadows.
sneakers, yeah, dark colored shirt, Uh, yeah, I mean, Nick, you said it, it's HD now, so maybe it was, whatever. But I mean, back in the day, depending on the film stock, the lighting, things like that, quality of the film could very well have looked to be the same color. I don't know. I've only ever seen this movie on Blu-ray. So I can't really speak to previous versions of Black Christmas, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that out of sorts on account of the whole red herring thing. So I don't know.
Agreed. But yeah, man, Barb's death scene is just a fucking, point in this movie that just is so. I mean, it's what makes this movie so great.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Yeah,
again, Rich
it's-
Morris's cinematography, the way it's shot, how it, like I said, it's intercut with Olivia Hussey watching the choir, sing the song downstairs. It's just a beautifully shot scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after that, it's just like after her death, it's just like there's no more like games and mystery.
Yeah,
At that
exactly.
point, it's just like the house is quiet. Where the night before it was like a dozen people in there while people were being killed, but now it's like, oh shit, like those people are gone and everybody else is dead, and it's just like silent.
Yeah, exactly. It's like game on at that point. I mean, when Phil later finds Barb's, body in her room and you just see her gasp, she
Oh,
turns.
that shot is
Clearly
so freaky.
Billy is, I know, clearly Billy's there and he just slams the door. Like you don't even see Phil
Well, see,
die on
that
screen.
was something I pointed out to Andrew. Is like he doesn't even really slam the door. He
doesn't
like
slam
makes
it.
eye contact with her and slowly shuts it. Like
Yeah,
this is,
yeah.
He
like,
looks at
looks
her.
right in
It's
the
like, yeah,
eyes
this
for
is
sure, and
happening.
slowly closes it.
That's true. That is true. But from my perspective, from that point, that's where the sense of dread really starts to build and build and build until the end, because you realize now that Jess is alone in the house with Billy, and is he up in the attic? Is he in one of the rooms? You don't fucking know
Right.
until you know.
Well, it's
you know.
like you said, she's all alone, so it's like she's the last one left. What's gonna happen?
Right. And then the big revelation scene comes shortly after that, where you find out that the calls are coming from inside the house. We knew that Billy was inside the house as viewers, but Jess and certainly nobody else in the house knew that. But man, Nash is a fucking terrible cop for telling her
What
that.
an ass! What
Yeah.
an absolute
Yeah.
asshole!
Right?
He should have just been like, "Hey, can you walk outside to the officer?" Because he didn't know at that point that the guy was dead, so it wouldn't have really helped her too much. But he should have been like, "Hey, can you go outside and meet with the officer that's stationed outside?"
Yep.
And just like
Yeah, but
anything but what he said.
It wouldn't have mattered anyway, because I don't. Obviously, Billy had no plans on leaving that bedroom. He was kind of just playing the waiting game. But once she got outside and saw that he was dead, it would have been an even bigger like, I need to get the fuck out of here right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just literally anywhere but there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, she was so concerned for Phil and Barb, even though Nash was telling her to go outside. Eventually he's like, the calls are coming from inside the house. It's like, why'd you tell her that? Even though John Saxon's character told you not to tell her that, you still fucking did it. But that leads us to the crowning fucking shot of the movie, and that is Billy peeking through the door at Jess, saying, "Hey, Agnes, it's me, Billy."
Oh God!
I mean, anybody who's
Agnes.
watched,
Don't tell them what we did, Agnes.
Anybody who's ever seen this movie, exactly what I'm talking about. That fucking eye is the stuff of nightmares. And in the chase scene that follows, holy shit, can Olivia
yeah.
Hussey scream. Dude, you think Jamie
Oh,
Lee
yeah.
Curtis is the scream queen? You ain't heard shit until you've heard Olivia Hussey scream.
See, and that right after he shows himself in the doorway, and she fucking whaps him with the door, and
That
like
blood
Yeah,
curdling
blood curdling
scream, and
scream he
she
lets
just
out.
runs. At that point she's
Oh,
like,
the chase
"No,
is
I'm
on,
gone."
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At that
and,
point
like-
it's just terrifying.
And he's
Oh,
not
super
slow.
terrifying.
He's hauling ass down those
Yeah.
stairs.
Oh no, he
It's-
is moving with a
Dude,
purpose.
the the sense of urgency I've never felt in another movie like in my life. It's insane.
You know what? He's very childlike. The way he like runs down the stairs, kind of like stomping on him. It's like a
Yep.
kid at Christmas.
Yeah.
Like stomping down the stairs to open his presents.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they never reveal Billy's like face or anything like that during this scene is still like, to me, that's great. I mean, that is a great piece of storytelling too. Like
Always from the shoulders down.
always from the shoulders down, or like his hand when he grabs Olivia
I
Hussey's
was
hair.
just about to talk about that. That scene is like that part of that sequence is it'll
Yeah, it's
stick
real
with me for the
gotcha
rest of my
moment.
life. It's
Yeah.
so out of nowhere, and it's as far as I know, I've never really seen anything like that created again or copied. It's like it was so out of nowhere and unexpected.
Agreed. I mean, the only thing that, and this is kind of the same, but kind of not at the same time. The only thing that really comes to my mind when trying to either honor that scene or replicate that scene is in Halloween H2O, when the Shape lowers himself down from behind Carrie Tate or Laurie Strode from this fucking pipe, right? So he's like been hanging up there, and you just see the feet dangle and him slowly coming down. It's just kind of like, oh shit. Same kind of reaction when Billy just grabs Jess's hair and just, wrenches on her.
Yeah.
Again, Olivia Hussey screams, Jesus Christ.
I mean, you gotta
so cool.
You gotta see a connection between Ghostface and Billy. Like they're very very similar. Like again with the door and like sprinting, not walking or taking his time or setting her up. Like it's balls to the wall. He's trying to
There's
fucking
no
kill her.
games. It's like like it's on. Like I'm killing you now.
Yeah, exactly. And with this chase scene, the most terrifying part for me is when Jess gets into the basement and locks the door, and Billy is just pounding
Wailing
on
on
this
it.
door. I mean, the tension in that part, I mean, from the get-go is high, but like you really feel like he is gonna bust down that door and murder this girl.
Yeah,
You
he's
know.
just like pure childish rage.
Well, the
Mhm.
You
coolest
can tell
the
just,
coolest
like,
part is like
everything he does.
the coolest part is like he's exploding with anger, and then
Yeah.
just at some point he's like, okay, I'm not gonna get in here, and just calmly walks away.
Yep, and then disappears. That's the last
Yeah.
you see of Billy.
Just like a kid, just like losing interest. Like,
Exactly.
attention span is gone.
Yep. And then the other, I mean, the thing that we talked about, like Peter being the red herring, comes into play next with this, because he breaks into this basement
Like a
of the sorority
fucking
house.
psycho.
Like a fucking
Yeah.
psycho. Who does that? I mean, clearly.
If Billy wasn't trying to kill her, Peter would have been trying to kill her. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, he, Jess sees this silhouette of somebody, creeping around the outside, thinking that it's the guy who's just tried to kill her. And then you find out it's Peter, and she's like, oh my God, thinking that Peter is this killer. Him breaking into this basement is just like, another notch on the belt of him being this killer. Right. And then she fucking takes him out, bro, with whatever weapon she had. I forget exactly
It's a
what
fire
it was.
poker.
It was a fire poker. Thank you. Just fucking beats him to death.
See,
Um,
even as a viewer, before he breaks into the basement, like when he's creeping around outside, like hiding behind trees and looking in, it's like, what is your deal? Like, what's the end game here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, have you like literally lost your mind? Homie, I understand you're a lot of stress, but
yeah, he's
act
been
fucking
having a
rational.
bad day, but
Yeah, well, you know what they say. It just takes
Yeah,
one
I mean,
bad
it's
day for
his
somebody to
fault.
snap.
yeah, it's totally his fault. He's having a bad day, but he's having a bad fucking day.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
and I don't know what he expected breaking into a house. If you're ready to break into a house, you better be ready to not walk out. That's
Agreed. Agreed.
Much less a sorority house, like.
Yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't
Like,
even be there in the first place, let
Yeah,
alone
like
breaking in.
there's no good intentions there.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have a bad time. But yeah, I mean, I love that scene. I love the scene when John Saxon finds Jess and Peter in the basement. She's got Peter's dead body in her lap, and you can tell she's just, adrenaline out. Great scene. Hate the blood in that scene because it looks like red temper.
Yeah.
Very orange. It's very
Yeah,
orange, like
yeah.
oil kind
It's
of
like- Yeah.
pastel.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
paint.
Exactly. But I mean, that's such a cool shot. You know, her just like semi passed out, Peter's staring corpse, just not blinking. Hats off to Keir Dullea for, keeping his eyes open for that long. I couldn't do that for such an extended shot. Um, but yeah, and then after this, the police have finally arrived. They've got Jess sedated. They're figuring out, there's dead bodies everywhere, shit like that. But the thing that really sets this ending off for me is that Billy is still in the fucking
Yeah. Oh
house,
my
Yeah.
god.
No.
and they
dude,
leave
those-
Jess
See,
there
that's
with
what.
him.
See, that
Yeah.
was my biggest gripe. Was what? Where the fuck are you guys going? There's dead bodies
Well,
here.
again, it's just utter chaos. It's just pure random coincidence one after another because Saxon's character, the lieutenant there, like the good cop, he tells I think the doctor that comes to check on her, he's like, "Oh, I'll stay with her throughout the night," and then the father's there, was it Harrison?
Yeah,
And
he goes
and
into
he
shock
faints, and then the
passes out.
doctor's like, "Oh," like kicks into his doctor and thinks like, "Oh, we got to get this man to a hospital." Which, why did they take her to a hospital?
That's what I was
Like,
gonna say. She's the only survivor. Well, it does. I'm
Yeah.
no doctor or anything, but maybe we should treat her first.
Maybe it was just different back then. Like, she's just a woman having one of those dizzy spells. Like, we'll put her in the
Right.
bed and she'll be fine.
Right, we're going to treat her for hysterics.
Yeah, one of the cops are
Yeah,
like, I was
hysteria.
a nom and I never fainted.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, just that realization that, everybody leaves Jess there. Granted, she's sedated. They think she's safe. But then you realize that Billy is still in the house. He's still up in the attic. And it's left up in the air, Jess's ultimate fate.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
leave it hanging.
Either way. Does he crawl down that ladder and just walk 5 feet to her bedroom and kill her? Or,
See, this is something I
But,
said to Andrew at the end of the movie. Like, it's probably not the case, but it like popped into my head for a second. I kind of thought it could be possible that Billy killed Peter and knocked Jess out, maybe because he wanted to kill her or something. Because the bodies were set up like he did with Barb and what's her name?
Phil.
Yeah,
Phyllis.
Phil. So I was like, I obviously it's probably not the case, but when I saw that, I was like, it kind of seems like it could be.
it does kind of feel like he got a little obsessed with her, not because he like picked her, but because like she was just the one who always picked up the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
So like
Yeah.
there was kind of that connection.
Well, you got to
kinda
think,
in
right?
That weird,
Like-
fucked up way he had to her.
So Billy was outside of the door to the basement. He didn't know Peter was about to knock on the basement window. Where would Billy go if he couldn't get in through the door, check for a window? It would make sense that as Peter's creeping up on her, Billy popped in, fucked them up, and then went off into the attic. But I don't know. Maybe he heard the sirens.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, very possible. And it's funny you mentioned that. So I don't know if you guys have seen Dave McRae's fan film, It's Me, Billy, which came out earlier this year, but it touches on that point as well. So that movie, It's Billy, focuses on Jess's granddaughter. And then it touches on Billy's obsession with Jess. This movie goes out, saying that Jess wrote a book about the murder. She became pretty wealthy and pretty famous.
See, I never heard about all this, but yeah, I could see how they could like draw the connection, and make a story.
Exactly. I mean, it's a pretty good bit of cinema. Love or hate Dave McRae, he definitely knows his stuff, and you could tell he's a huge Black Christmas fan and treats the lore with respect, which I'm all about. Check it out, if you haven't. It's called Me, Billy. You can find it on YouTube. But yeah, interesting point. And to be honest, Nick and Andrew, I never really thought about that, because like to me it was always like after Billy fails to break down the door, he just kind of slinks away, like a wounded animal. It's like, oh, if I can't get you now, I'll get you later. You have to come out eventually, ha ha ha, kind of deal. But for him to be the one to take out Peter and stage Peter and Jess the way that it was, that's an interesting point. And I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, 'cause
Even kind of how like he's just left alone with her to do whatever he pleases.
Mhm.
Like at the end, like, oh, he's still the one in control.
Absolutely. Which brings me to my final thoughts on Black Christmas. I mean, I literally have nothing bad to say about this movie. Um, Even though I'm critical of the character of Peter, Keir Dullea plays his part as the jilted boyfriend and red herring perfectly.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't be mad at the actor for the character, like
Exactly.
I mean,
it's like in
Exactly.
I
Game
think
of
in some
Thrones, like
cases you
Joffrey
can.
getting like the. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. But it's
You
like the
know,
exception.
yeah, you
I mean,
can't be mad at the
a lot of
actor.
actors
Like,
get
yeah,
hate for how well they play like shithead characters.
exactly. And we've seen that recently, with like The Last Jedi, the actress, I forget her name, basically getting bullied off social media because everybody hated her character.
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Hate,
yeah,
hate the character, not the actress.
yeah.
To
Exactly.
do that to somebody
Not
is
a fan of the
fucking
character,
bullshit.
but it's like, why would you? Yeah, like
Yeah.
And
that is
also,
so
not for
so
nothing,
weird
not
to
for
go after the
nothing.
person.
There's definitely racial motive, for people hating on
Yeah,
her.
there was obviously a whole lot in there for the people who actually went out of their way to do
Yeah,
it, and it's like, you know, this is a movie, right?
Also, like, we're all grown men, right? Like, these
Mhm.
movies are not for us anymore. They're for children. Grow the fuck up and get off of Twitter.
Yeah, and I mean, also at that point for the actor or actress, at that point, it's like the only like correct response is, "Oh, I'm sorry. Which like major movie have you been in recently?"
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I
Exactly.
can understand with. All right, we're not going to go into Star Wars, but I can understand. This happened
Yeah,
last. This happened last time too.
it all comes back to
So
Star
I can
Wars.
understand why people were upset with them like disconnecting Ray and Finn because it was clear that they had like some sort of love interest set up, but it's not worth like thinking about after you watch the movie.
No,
Mhm.
it's
Agreed.
manufactured controversy. It's stupid. So it's not even worth talking about. It's stupid.
Yeah. But getting back to Black Christmas, I mean, Olivia Hussey, John Saxon, Margot Kidder, everybody else in this movie are absolutely wonderful. And I only wish that Bob Clark was still alive to see how much this movie means to the horror community. And also, I'm honestly glad that this came out before every movie, where there had to be a sequel for every movie, because it works perfectly as a self-contained standalone movie. And if there was anything such as the perfect horror movie, I'm not shitting you, I would put Black Christmas at the top of that
Oh,
list.
Oh yeah.
Perfect, just self-contained story happens within 36 hours. Like you see the beginning, you see the end, and it's left open to the imagination.
Well, see, that's the
Like,
thing
perfect.
about Halloween. Like, we're obviously all too young to know a world where there's only one Halloween and Michael Myers is still on the loose. Who knows how that movie would feel now if there was never a sequel? It's the same thing with
Uh-huh.
Town That Dreaded Sundown. That movie did it perfectly too.
Absolutely. Yep. Just encapsulated, perfect story, also based off of true events, the Texarkana
That was
murders.
another one too. What didn't that release like 72? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, so that was
pretty
that was
early in
another
the
one
70s.
too.
Oh wow.
Which is a great movie if you've never watched the original. The remake that they did not too long ago
Avoid it.
actually isn't that
I
bad.
hated it.
I thought it was fun. I wouldn't say it's the best retelling of a story, but I thought it was fun.
Oh, Town That Dreaded Sundown came out in 76, so
76. Okay, cool.
Either way, it's definitely like the early to like mid 70s is like definitely when horror movies became
And-
like well known, or at least relatively well known thing.
and again,
And
Andrew, what you were
it
going
all
off of,
coincides with like serial killers.
Yeah, well, that's
'cause
what I was
when
just
it
about to
entered
say
the
is,
lexicon.
The Town That Dreaded Sundown is very heavily influenced by the Zodiac murders. So
Well, and it was also based on a true story of the Phantom Killer in Texarkana.
right.
So, but yeah, Zodiac as well, even though the actual Phantom Killer murders happened in the 1940s, so well before Zodiac. But I mean, there's still elements of Zodiac
Yeah,
in
definitely.
there.
It's just mostly the look and they obviously created new murders in the movie. So
The whole kind of just macabre like fascination with like horror movies and everything
Mhm.
like that, just it all happened back
Exactly.
then. Like
I
the
mean,
whole
the ni-
reason we're talking about any horror movies, or even this podcast in the first place, it's just everything that was going on back then with the movies coming out was because the people at the forefront, really in the know, were seeing what was happening in society at the time and
Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost
started
like there's
drawing
a
inspiration
reason-
from it.
it's almost like there's a reason for people to be upset about these horror movies.
Sure.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, this reminds me of something that just happened, but It's
Yeah.
never really happened before in this country, and then now it's like we're so desensitized, and it's not these horror movies doing it. It's just that it hasn't stopped. Like the
Well,
inspiration hasn't
Well, it's
stopped.
funny. This is a weird quote, but Steve-O from Jackass always says, "It's not Tony Hawk's fault if your kid breaks his arm skateboarding."
Oh yeah. Steve-O is a wise man.
Yeah, Steve-O
From
is
the
a wise man.
words of
Crazy man, but a
Steve-O.
wise man. Yeah, it's the Church of Steve-O.
Great guy.
But Nick, what are your final thoughts on Black Christmas?
I don't even know where to begin, really. It's scary. It's beautiful. It's funny. It's like every dimension of a movie that you want in one movie, and it was done way before other movies did it.
If the horror genre were a house, Black Christmas would be one of the many bricks in the foundation.
And you hear about people like, like you'll listen to a podcast and people will be like, oh, Halloween was the one that did this, and then there will be that one guy that's like, oh, actually, Black Christmas did, and I fucking feel that every single time. It's a shame. I mean, this movie is obviously not looked over by people like us, but if you presented it to like a girl you were dating or something, she wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that's a fucking great movie.
Right?
Yeah, it's well known, I guess, kind of, at least relatively well known, and kind of the more like horror focused crowds. But to
Yeah.
anybody who's like just has kind of like a passing fascination or like likes horror movies, like they've probably never heard of it. Like Nick just showed it to me like a year and a half ago, and I didn't even know it existed, even though like I've been watching horror movies since I was like 7.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like I saw by the time I was 5, there was like 7 Halloween movies or something, and I watched them all before I was 7, and I didn't watch Black Christmas until I was like 16 or 17.
Yeah, I mean, I discovered Black Christmas pretty late in my horror watching career, and I'm glad I did. I'm so glad I did, and I genuinely enjoy introducing people to this movie, and I could talk about it for hours and hours, and it's just a gem of a movie,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'm
you
glad
can-
it
You can
exists.
just talk about it, all its positive quality. Like, I guess another way to put it, Black Christmas did for horror movies what 2001: A Space Odyssey did for sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy. And before we wrap up, Andrew, I want to touch on a point that you made, about the 70s really being the starting point for, horror movies as we know it. And it was a turning point. It's moving out of the creature features from the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, the
and
thing
and
from the lagoon and
and
all
like
that.
and like all the Hammer horror movies, where that has that gothic horror thing going on. It's that turning point, where Texas Chainsaw started that. Black Christmas built upon that, and then Halloween perfected that.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah.
it's weird
Yeah.
because like movies like Black Christmas and Halloween, they kind of twisted the romance of like a Hammer film. Those movies were very romantic in a way, but it changed it and made it into like a twisted version of what they did with those movies.
Yeah, turns it on its head, absolutely. And that's what I think every good horror movie should do. All right, so thank you guys, everybody. Nick and Andrew, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. If you'd like to hear more of our content, check us out on YouTube. We have a TikTok, we have Instagram. You could find us on Spotify. And, we encourage everybody to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or if you have a suggestion for, a movie that you'd like to hear us cover, we'd love to hear it. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening.
You've been listening to the Horror Spot Podcast, hosted by Nick Wilcott, Blake Lambert, and Andrew Hughes. This episode was produced and edited by Nick Wilcott. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. The Horror Spot Podcast is currently streaming on YouTube and Spotify. If you like what you've just listened to, please like, share, and subscribe to get notified of the latest episodes as they come.